They say the desert wind carries more than sand. It carries voices, broken promises, sins that never rested. And it was this wind that brought me to Coyote Hollow, a small, forgotten town of dust and silence. I arrived as the sun was already sinking behind the mountains, staining the horizon rust. The sign for desert rose hotels weighed like a tired gallows, groaning with each gust. I walked in. The air inside smelled of time standing still. Yvonne, an old man with a trembling gaze, recognized me before I'd even said my name. "You're the sheriff, aren't you?" he murmured, as if seeing an omen. He said he was waiting for me, and that room number 6 was restless again. Locked for 40 years, but still alive. Footsteps, voices, laughter. "The problem, Sheriff," he said, "is that no one opens that door, but someone inside keeps pacing." I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step sounded like a warning. The hallway was narrow, thick with mold and memories. At the end, the door to room 6 awaited me. The number nearly faded. The wood seemed to breathe. I shined the lamp on it and saw the fresh handprints on the doorknobs. Someone had been there. And not long ago, I put my ear to it. Silence. Then a soft, feminine whisper saying my name, Elias. My blood ran cold. I didn't ask who it was. Deep down, I already knew. The lamp flame flickered, and a chill passed through the hallway. The wind whispered behind me, and I had the strange certainty that the entire hotel was watching me. That night, I realized that it wasn't me who came to room number 6. He was the one who called me, "Stay with me," because in the next part, you'll find out what room number 6 held 40 years ago, and why it was never truly empty. I climbed alone to the 2nd floor, the lamp trembling in my left hand, and the weight of the star burning in my chest. The hallway smelled of old wood and ancient mold, the odor of things that have died but still refuse to go away. Each footstep echoed like a muffled gunshot. At the end of the hallway, the number 6 waited for me, half-faded, etched into the door like a scar. There was a thick layer of dust everywhere, but the doorknob, that one was clean, recently touched fingerprints. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I put my ear to it and heard something. It wasn't wind. It was breathing. And then a voice, Elias, my name, whispering in the dark, as if the room itself knew me. I tried to turn the key the old owner had given me, but it broke in the lock, dry, as if the iron too were afraid. A chill swept through the hallway, knocking out the flame in the lamp. The silence that followed was alive, pulsating. I knew I wasn't alone. I heard slow footsteps behind, me shuffling, heavy, rhythmic, like a tired heart. I turned, my hand already on my holster. Nothing, just the empty hallway. The faint moonlight filtering through the cracks, and that scent of lavender, sweet and out of place. I stared back at the door. It was different, swollen, breathing. I ran my hand over the wood and swear to God I felt heat. The door was hot, as if something were burning inside. I tried to push the thought away, but fear is a treacherous beast. It doesn't bite, it waits. I tilted the lamp and noticed that the shadows on the floor weren't following my movements. They were moving on their own, as if someone on the other side were doing the same thing. Touch the cold metal of the holster and, without knowing why, whispered, "Want me to open it?" The answer came in a dry snap. The latch moved on its own, turning just enough for me to see a crack. A warm breath escaped, almost a human sigh. The flame of the lamp rose on its own, and the scent of lavender turned to rust. At that moment, I understood that the door was not a barrier. It was an invitation, and room number 6 wasn't being opened by MIT, was opening me. The floor creaked beneath my boots, the wood groaned, and for a second, I felt like the entire hotel was holding its breath with me. The crack in the door let out a pale, cold light, as if the moon were alive within. "Come in," said the voice. It wasn't a request. It was an order. I lifted the star, took a deep breath, and took the first step. I descended the stairs as the sun began to rise behind the dunes. The owner of Desert Rose Hotel was waiting for me in the lobby, sitting behind a counter, his face paler than the morning light itself. I could still feel the cold of room number 6 clinging to my skin, as if I had brought something of it with me. "I warned you, Sheriff," the old man said, without looking up. "That room doesn't like to be remembered." I pulled out a chair, the sound of it scraping against the floor seeming to cut the silence in half. "I want to know what happened in there, everything, from the beginning." The man took a deep breath. His hands trembled as he touched the counter, and his eyes seemed to stare at some distant point, perhaps within his own guilt. "It was 1883, he began. A newlywed couple arrived here on a quiet evening. The man was polite, spoke little, but had that look in his eyes of someone carrying something trapped inside their soul. The girl was pure joy. She brought life to this dead place." The words came out slowly, as if they were heavy. They were given room number 6. It was the best in the house new bed, clean curtains, desert view. They seemed happy. They laughed, danced, toasted with cheap wine. But around midnight, the laughter turned to screams. When we went upstairs, the door was locked. No one dared break in. In the morning, when they opened it, the blood was already dry. The old man stopped. He killed his wife, Sheriff, and then he hanged himself from the ceiling beam. The girl was still holding her veil. They say he used the wedding ring to slit his own wrist. From that day on, the room was never quiet. A heavy silence fell over the place. All I could hear was the creaking of the antique clock on the wall. "Do you have a record of this?" I asked. He nodded, disappearing behind the counter and returning with a thick, dust-covered, cracked book. "Here," he murmured. "His name is here." I opened the book carefully. The pages were fragile, yellowed, and smelled of iron and mildew. I ran my fingers over the lines until I found the date, 1883, and just below, the name written in dark, firm ink, Thomas Blackthorn. I felt my heart stop for a moment. That handwriting, I would recognize it even in the dark. "It can't be," I whispered. The old man watched me in silence, waiting for an explanation that I didn't even have. Thomas Blackthorn was my brother, the same man I buried with my own hands hundreds of miles from here. I closed the book slowly. The air grew heavy. The lamp flickered. I swore I heard a distant violin, a broken melody drifting up from upstairs. I looked up at the ceiling, then the sound stopped. At that moment, I realized that room number 6 wasn't just a room. It was a mirror, and he was calling me again. I returned to the second floor while the entire city slept. The hotel seemed to breathe silently, like a wounded animal trying to hide its pain. Each step I took was too loud, and the lamp I carried trembled like a guilty heart. When I reached the door to room number 6, I realized it was no longer locked. It was ajar, exuding that same scent of lavender mixed with rust. I pushed slowly. The wood groaned, and the chill that escaped pierced my bones. Inside, the air was thick, and dust danced in the pale moonlight. Everything was as before the bed, the chair turned against the wall, the cracked mirror. But there was something new, a presence with their backs to me. Someone sat in the chair. The shadow moved slightly, but steadily. I lifted the star, gasping for air. And then I heard. It took a while, brother. The voice didn't come from the air, it came from inside me. The mirror reflected 2 figures now, me and him, Thomas. Younger, the same tired look, the same curse etched on his face. The lamp swayed, and the reflection smiled. The entire room seemed to lean toward the 2 of us, as if the hotel had been waiting for this reunion for decades. I felt the ground tremble beneath my boots. Room number 6 had finally opened the door, but not for me to enter, but to arrest me. The reflection in the mirror rose slowly, as if time obeyed its will. It was him, Thomas. The same tired look, the same trace of blood on his hands, and the same silence I'd carried since the day I buried him. "You're late, brother," he murmured. His voice was mine, but heavier, as if each word dragged an invisible chain. I tried to move, but the ground seemed to trap me. Thomas stepped closer, and the air grew thick, vibrating between us. "I've never left this hotel. Sin tied me here, and now it wants you too." I felt a strange heat rise in my chest, the star on my vest burning like a live coal. The mirror began to crack, reflecting versions of Usage more warped than the last. "You don't understand, Elias," he whispered. "Room number 6 is a mirror, and what it reflects is what the desert refused to bury." In that instant, I realized the face I saw before me was not Thomas's, it was mine. I don't remember when the cold began to take over my body. I only know that when I opened my eyes, the hotel was silent, the kind of silence that only exists when something is gone. Thomas was no longer there. Or maybe I was just in a different reflection. The mirror, now whole, reflected my image, but with a gaze that was no longer mine. The lamp burned without fire, and the air smelled of lavender and rust perfume of room number 6. I staggered to the door, trying to turn the handle. It wouldn't budge. The lock was gone, as if the room had decided to keep me there. Outside, I heard hurried footsteps, distant voices. The old owner was calling out to me, knocking on the wood. I tried to answer, but the sound died in my throat. My voice echoed only inside my head. The room began to breathe again. The floor pulsed, and I felt the weight of the star on my chest melt into my skin. The walls murmured names, countless, each spoken with the same pain, and among them, mine. Elias Blackthorn. The lamplight went out, and everything turned to shadow. There was no pain, just the feeling that I was leaving something behind. Or perhaps that the desert was taking me back. They say the next morning, the owner found the door locked again, the key broken on the floor. No sign of me, only the star left on the bed, still warm as if it had a heart. Since then, no one has slept on the second floor. Some travelers swear they hear, on windy mornings, the sound of boots echoing in the corridor, and a hoarse voice saying, "I'm the sheriff, and this room is already occupied." And when the wind blows in from the desert, bringing the scent of lavender and iron, I hear my own footsteps echoing between the walls, because I never left here. Room number 6 is still occupied by me. If you heard the sound of these words echoing inside, leave your comment saying what you thought of Sheriff Elias Blackthorn's story. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to continue traveling with me through every forgotten corner of this cursed Wild West. And no, click on the video that is already appearing on your screen, because the next story begins as night falls upon Red Hollow, and the desert calls again.